Hey there, everybody. Welcome to tonight's live stream. So glad you guys could make it. Let me adjust my camera just a little bit here. There we go. Oh. Crap. I broke it. Hopefully not. Usually it autofocuses by this point. Oh, there we go. Okay, so welcome to tonight's live stream. Glad you guys could be here. Gonna read some stories again tonight. Trying to think if we've got any news or anything to go over. If you guys haven't yet, compilation 8 is live. Touch of Madness. So be sure to go on Amazon and get your own copy of that. Currently working on another audiobook. If you guys are in the mood for audiobooks, what's up, Blondie? Hey, Blondie and Leia, and it looks like Cindy made it. And I'm sure everybody else is just running a little late. I did it at 7:30 tonight instead of 7. So, you know. Oh. Well, she'll have to catch us in reruns then, I guess, Leia. It is what it is. Wednesday is a weird time to do this anyway, so I can't really hold it against anybody. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I'm currently working on a second audiobook for Eileen, third audiobook for Eileen Sheehan. If you haven't got your copy of They yet, go on Audible and get your copy of They. I make half of the royalties off the audiobook copy, so, you know. That's really about all we got going on. I got a scramble on that book I'm working on now. I thought it was due on the 20th, but it's actually due on the 8th, so I'm only about halfway through it. Hey, El DeGusto, glad to see you. Let's see. Oh, been doing something a little different with the cozy horrors. Hope you guys have been enjoying them. Trying to make them a little bit more personal, a little bit more talky. So, you know, trying out some new things. I know there's been a lot of repeat stories. I do apologize for that. Some of it's the theming. It's really hard to theme them just right so they all come out the way they're supposed to. But I'm working on it. I'm trying to get it to where it's supposed to be, but it's probably going to take a little bit more time, you know. But let's see. Let me get these in the right order because I actually put up a few more than I was going to read in the old dump file there. Cause, as I'm sure you guys know, Easter's coming up. I think it's next week. Yeah, I think it's next week Easter's coming up. And April Fool's Day is coming up next week. So I did a story for each. That way we get some holiday content going on. Let's see. Gotta get everything just so here. And then I've got a Richard T. Seraph story for Friday. However, I've got it's seasonal. It's kind of a Richard T. Seraph Easter story. And B, I got the audio back from LaDama. So next week, not this coming up week, but the week after next, we're going to get a grandpa story with her voice lines in it. So that'll be fun. Ooh, a Good Friday haunt. That sounds kind of cool. Let's see. I guess we will go ahead and get started. Everybody else may come in a little later. I don't know. Like I said, I just like reading for you guys. I mean, I don't care if it's one of you guys or 10,000, you know. I have noticed that numbers have been a little up lately. We've been kind of on the rise there, so I've been working with somebody who's another fan to do a little video marketing, and it's definitely boosted some of the views a little bit. Oh, hey, what's up, Osiris? But yeah. So the numbers have been a little up. We've definitely had some more subs. It's been a good time. Um, yeah, that should be everything. I'll start reading, I guess. We're going to get another installment of our Laughing Audience stories. I think we're going to finish those up pretty soon. We've only got a couple more before the finale. And, I definitely will, Leia. Yours are in the, I've got yours in the guest folder, so we'll put them in the rotation, too. Um, but yeah, so we're going to read tonight's Laughing Audience story. It's opening night for them, so we'll see how the show goes. And this one's called Opening Night. So away we go. Yeah. Get our Duke Cannon plug here. I hope they send me some money. It was the debut. Yeah. It was the night of the debut, and Julie hoped Frank was watching from wherever he was. After a month of accidents, strange occurrences, script changes, and the death of one puppeteer, they were ready for the live event of Fausti Review. This one was going to be a doozy. They were shooting it in front of a live audience, and it was going to be the most highly anticipated season finale of the season. She knew that Frank hadn't wanted a second season, but if Frank had heard the voices that she had heard, then he would have known they didn't have a choice. The muses must be served, or the consequences could be dire. The show had had plenty of setbacks. They had damaged some of the puppets when they didn't feel the puppeteers were doing all they could do. They had even killed one of the puppeteers, one of the men who had been working with the animal orchestra. He was a lesser puppeteer, not someone who was absolutely needed, but it had really brought it home for the rest of them. They understood the stakes now. They understood what they were up against, and they knew better than to make noises where they could be heard. They also believed in Julie, or at least they knew to fear her. She had been backing... Try that one again. She had the backing of the muses, and that was all she really needed. 10 minutes! 10 minutes till curtain call, somebody yelled, and Julie felt a giddy sense of anticipation grow inside her. Tonight was going to be the start of it all, the beginning of the end. The final episode of the TV show she had worked on so hard that would make a finale to the world at large. Hey, can I have a minute? She turned. It was Wallace. It would be him. He'd been trying to make her see sense for weeks, and Julie would have probably fed him to the same force that was running things around here if he hadn't been so damn important. Not only was he the lead puppeteer, but he was also a writer on the show, and though she didn't need them as much as she used to, he was still very important. The head muse had made that very clear. He had to perform. He had to go on. Sure. What's on your mind? Wallace must have seen something on her face, because he cringed back a little bit, but his resolve was stronger than his fear. We just want to make sure this is what you really want. We know something's going on. We know that man's death wasn't an accident. We just want to make sure that this is what Frank would have wanted as well. Is this truly what you think we should be doing with the show? Julie wasn't sure he was actually talking about the direction or whether he was talking about a second season. They all knew that Frank hated the idea. They certainly brought it up enough times, but most of them were too scared of what was going on here to back out now. The show would go on, whether they wanted it to or not. But some of them were important to the muses, and Julie had to make sure that they didn't get out of the net before the trap was sprung. Of course I'm sure. This is his life's work. It's very important that it go off without a hitch. You want the show to go on, don't you? I feel like our benefactors would be very upset if they thought you didn't want this to go on. Excuse me. He cringed a little. That was good. He should be afraid of them. They were very scary, but they were also very persuasive. Oh, okay, Julie, if you're sure. Very sure. You get into place. The show's going to start soon. Wallace scuttled off like the whipped dog that he was, and Julie grinned as they started to count it down. Tonight was going to really be something. Agent Warwick was hiding behind the soundstage and watching as the audience piled in. He could hear the music going on inside, hear the excited voices of the kids as they went to see their favorite show, but none of them seemed to realize what was at stake here. He suspected this was going to be the night when they made their move, and it was going to be of the utmost importance that he shut it down. It was the last chance for Warwick, and he did not intend to waste it. Nah, I don't like to blow around that. And he did not intend to waste it. He had been hiding for the past 3 days, posing as a homeless man so he didn't attract too much attention. He had seen the police officers in the area, and he suspected they were looking for him. He couldn't afford to be found by the state police right now. His work was of the utmost importance, and as little as he wanted to harm anyone, he would if it came down to it. Right now, they were being let in, but in about 30 minutes, the show would begin. He could hear the animal band in there as they warmed up, the kids talking about how cool it would be to see them, and the adults talking quietly to them as they tried to keep them under control. Warwick hated that they were going to be disappointed tonight, but better disappointed than dead. He supposed Agent Hires would be disappointed as well. The Jarrett case wasn't going well for them, but he had expected as much. No one understood what was going on, and that included Agent Warwick. This wasn't the usual way the gallery did business. They were warping people's minds, yes, but usually it was through the laughter, not through the strange kind of memory osmosis. It was driving people to suicide, and even if he had been there, Warwick wasn't sure that he could have found a way to stop it. It was a lose-lose situation, and he intended to mitigate damage in a place that he could actually be of help. He returned to his alley and found the uniform that he had put in a dry cleaner bag to keep it clean. He hoped the fellow he had taken it from wouldn't get into too much trouble. Security was pretty tight around here, and a few of them had been working doubles lately. It had been a fairly easy operation to pick his trunk lock and take the extra uniform out. He knew the man he had taken it from might not even notice. He might have just thought that he took it out and hadn't returned it yet. Whatever the case, he was glad to have it. He would need a disguise to get in if he intended to go unnoticed. Warwick didn't know exactly what he was going to do once he got in there, but he would have to shut this thing down somehow. Whether it was by cutting the power or just shooting the cameras, he would have to figure it out pretty quickly, or everyone was going to suffer for it. Hey, Kathleen, we're glad you could make it. Who else did we get? I see Kathleen, there's El Gusto. Looks like we've got about everybody. Oh, getting some more, though. That's always good. Carlos didn't really know what to do at this point. The show had to go on. It was the only way for any of them to stay alive, but he strongly suspected that tonight was going to be the end of not just the show, but a good number of other things. Carlos didn't really want to go out like this, but his options were pretty limited as he saw them. If he walked out, Julie would probably just get the shadow creatures to puppeteer him in the same way he did his puppets. If he went on, he would be conflicted in whatever was complicit. He would be complicit in whatever was going to happen, and he just really wasn't sure he wanted that either. Either way, his puppets were going to be used for something he did not agree with, and he didn't like it any more than anyone else on the show did. "There's still time to run," Gene said, as he noticed Carlos looking at the door. "Who knows, one of us might even make it." Carlos shook his head as he patted Gene on the arm. "No, I won't abandon you guys now. If we're going down, then we're all going down together." Wallace didn't say anything. Both men were getting a little concerned about him. He hadn't been saying much lately, and they thought he might be having a mental breakdown. They could both commiserate. Both of them felt like they might be going crazy, too. All three of them had been in showbiz for a long time, most of his life in Carlos's case, but this was one of the strangest productions he had ever been a part of. Carlos suspected it might be the last production he was ever a part of, but he tried not to think about that. One of them would need to get out of here so they could tell everyone what had happened. He kept hoping that Warwick would barge in with the feds and shut this whole thing down. But as the Animal Band began to play, and the crowd began to clap, the chances of it happening seemed less and less with each passing moment. They were walking out now, carrying their puppets and smiling at the kids, and the parents who were seated in the stands as well. It wasn't their fault. None of them had any idea what was going on behind the scenes. Carlos hoped it wasn't going to be the end for all of them either, but who really knew anymore? "Good evening, everyone." He flinched as he saw Julie walking onto the stage with a microphone in hand. Julie, the harbinger of death herself, had arrived, and she was carrying one of the muses with her. "I'm so glad you could join us tonight. Welcome to the live performance of Fausti Revue. I hope all of you are ready for an evening of laughs, because today's performance is going to be one to remember. I won't spoil anything by prattling on, but I do want to thank the crew for all their hard work, as well as everyone who's worked on the show. You guys deserve everything that you've worked for, and I do hope that you find it under those stage lights tonight. Now, without further ado, let's begin the show." That's all for this week on them. Next week, we'll probably finish it up. Probably finish up this part of it. Hey, Winter, we're glad to see you. And then, move on to the next bit. There's not many parts left in the Laughing Audience. I think we've only got about 5 or 6 more. Then we'll have to pick another series to do for a while. It's almost April. We probably won't go back to the Black Site until June. So we'll probably go back to Black Site in June, and then we'll go probably to what's it called? The story about the woods. Shoot, it's my story. How do I not remember what it's called? Hold sight. I hate when that happens. The Deep Woods of Rayford. We'll probably go back to the Deep Woods of Rayford for a while before we go back to the Black Site stories, I think. We've left Rayford sitting for a little too long. But that one's going to be a little longer. I think we're only about halfway through that one, so we got plenty more Rayford to go. I'm a little mixed on finishing up. Yeah, Rayford Woods. You got it, Blondie. I'm a little bit conflicted about finishing up The Laughing Audience. It was one of my older series, but it'll be good to see it finally finished up, I think. I've really been kind of hesitant to end it, but, you know, everything's got to end sometime. Alrighty. Let's see. I think next we're going to move on to our Kashmir story. And it's going to be a Sheriff Guthrie story this week. So I think you guys will enjoy it. It's called Sheriff Guthrie's Problem. And I think you guys will like it. He sat at his desk with his head in his hands and tried to make sense of the situation. He had locked the town down. He had set up checkpoints. He had talked to the kids. He had put up flyers, but still, things were going poorly. Every meeting with the mayor and the secret council was the same. They told him the problem was escalating. They told him the corruption was spreading. They said that the Bright was encroaching, but they had no idea how to stop it. They had no ideas at all. They just looked at him like he should know what to do. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. Guthrie had been a cop in a big city. He had fought against gangs, drugs, crime in general, but believe it or not, he didn't have a lot of experience with death cults who were trying to infiltrate his city with vibes and literature. I don't know how to stop this, he said, rubbing at his temples as the headache throbbed between his eyes. He reached into the desk, and when the bottle of whiskey thumped against the drawer, he considered it for a moment. The bottle had been a present from Woods on his birthday, and he had put it in the drawer when it threatened to roll off the desk. It had been in there for a bit, 2 or 3 months at least, and suddenly, Guthrie was very thirsty. The thing he wanted most was a drink. A drink would make him feel relaxed right about now, and relaxed was something he desperately wanted. He reached for it, stopped, and opened the other drawer as he took out the aspirin. He took out 3 of them and chewed them up without water. His dad had always said that the sign of a true alcoholic was the ability to chew up meds without wincing or needing water. He would know, too. Guthrie Sr. was a booze hound, and Guthrie had a few old memories to back it up. His father had been a cop, too, and he had often taken out his frustration from work on his son. Someone knocked on the door, and Guthrie growled as he slammed the door closed and hunkered over his desk. "Come in," he husked, and Officer Gibson came tentatively inside. "Hey, Mastermind, we're glad to see you." Did I miss anyone? Gibson had been with them for a little over a year, and she was working out well. She had come in on one of those buses and gotten straight to work, blundering into the sheriff's office and asking if she could be of help. Turned out she had experience as a dispatcher, and Guthrie realized that he could use her in dispatch. They were trying to cross-train her for police work, but she really was more comfortable behind a computer than behind the wheel of a cruiser. "Sir, the mayor is on the phone." She cocked her head as she took a long look at him. "Sheriff, are you okay? You look run down." Always good to be heard. "I'm fine," Guthrie sighed. There's Just a lot going on, as you doubtlessly know. It's all just a little too much sometimes. Did the mayor... Did he say what he wanted? He said he needed to speak with you about the checkpoints. There is a possible containment breach, and he's curious to know what you're doing about it. There it was. The same thing that all of them had worried about. The second one of these bastards got over the border and into Kashmir, Guthrie would be done. He was still just the acting sheriff, not even formally elected, and he needed a win so that he didn't lose his job. He had heard a few people talking about how Guthrie wasn't doing enough to handle the situation, and how they might consider running against him. If that happened, Guthrie wouldn't just be out of a job, he'd be out of a livelihood. He needed a win, and he needed it yesterday. Thanks, Gibson. I'll take it in here. Sheriff, she said, his hand already resting on the phone, I think for what it's worth that you're doing a great job. You'll figure this out. I've got faith in you. Guthrie smiled. Thanks, Gibson. Now, I've got to take this before I make the mayor any madder than he already is. Gibson nodded and left as Guthrie picked up the phone and prepared for an ass-chewing. Sheriff Guthrie here. Guthrie, it's the mayor. I've just received reports of pamphlets appearing around the city recently. They have appeared in the library, around the school, and in some of the bathrooms in Old Town. We don't have any particular suspects, but I'm just a little curious as to how this could happen when you have them checkpoints all over town. So enlighten me, temporary Sheriff Guthrie. Guthrie bit his tongue. Every damn time. We're doing our best, Mayor. We have people everywhere, checkpoints, patrols over the border, and every available man is combing the woods for stragglers as we speak. I've deputized over 36 citizens. I've borrowed a few officers from the prison to round up our armed guards. And I've dispensed all the literature I can find. What more would you have me do exactly? On the other end of the phone, Guthrie could hear the mayor grinding his teeth. He could sympathize with the man. He was under just as much pressure as he was, but he couldn't think of anything else to do. In many ways, the town was like a castle that was under siege. The enemies had trapped them inside the borders, and it was on them to find their weak points before the enemy did. Guthrie was up against the wall. He couldn't think of anything else to do in his quest for a return to the old, boring way of life. Guthrie, do you know why I tolerate your ineptitude? Probably because the other officers respect me, and it would be a pain in the ass to get them used to someone new. I put up with you because even at your most infuriating, you are still highly efficient. I'm honestly praying that the people vote you in this July. I'm hoping they do, because the alternative is that some other asshole will get your job and not be as good as you at it. I need you, Guthrie, but I need you to use your head, boy. We are at war, whether you realize it or not, and I can't lose this town any more than you can. I know you're focused on your campaign, but you may not know that I'm focused on mine as well. If you don't stop this from getting out of hand, I won't have a snowball's chance in hell of getting reelected either. Guthrie couldn't help but laugh. Mayor, no one has run against you in years. Yes, well, we've never had a crazy cult trying to take over the town before either. If I can't stop 'em, it might not matter if I get reelected at all. These bright assholes probably don't want a mayor they can't control anyway. We'll both be assimilated or killed or whatever they have in mind, and some new pawns will move into our position. I like being the mayor, Guthrie. Keep these people out. or I will find someone who can. The mayor hung up on him then, and as Guthrie put the phone down, he lay his head against the cold wood. What was he going to do? What the hell was he going to do? The radio in the corner suddenly crackled to life, and Guthrie turned his head sharply as his hand fell to his holster. The old radio had been a holdover from Masterson's office, and Guthrie hadn't even believed it worked. It was a gadget, a relic, but as it came to life with a crackle of static, Guthrie realized it might be dangerous, too. Why do anything, Sheriff Guthrie? Let us in. We could do more for you than anyone ever has. The revolver thundered as Guthrie drew it and put 2 rounds in the radio. He heard people scream and yell from the next room, and Guthrie's hands shook as he put it away. When they asked him what had happened, he would tell them it had slipped out of its holster and gone off when it hit the floor. They were shaken, but they believed him. In reality, it seemed this was his only course of action. However he rooted them out, Guthrie would destroy the threat. He could do nothing less. They would have his town over Guthrie's dead body. Alrighty, there you go. That's your Kashmir story for the day. Ugh. Uh-oh, what did I miss? Uh-oh, I'm sorry you lost your Discord there, Blondie. I know I like having mine around. So. Oh, I was gonna ask. I've been rediscovering a podcast I used to like a few years ago. Do any of you guys listen to Welcome to Night Vale? I don't know if you've heard it, but it's a pretty good podcast, and it's got that whole weird factor that like I really like for my Kashmir stories. I mean, it's about a little Arizona town where just weird stuff happens, and they might like exist outside of time and stuff. It was a big kind of like catalyst for my Kashmir stories. And I don't know, I've been thinking about doing something similar to that with my Kashmir stories. Like, the more I listen to it, I'm like, I could definitely do something like that with Kashmir. Like, Kashmir's weird like that. And I feel like we could do a newscast from Kashmir, and it would be pretty good. I don't know, something I've been kicking around lately. Back when I retire again, it might be something I consider. The production value would definitely be a little higher than what I'm doing now. But, it's, if you haven't listened to it, you definitely should. Like, it's a really great podcast. But, I don't know. Just something I've been kicking around lately. They absolutely are, Leia. Absolutely. Let's see. I guess we'll move on to our Mr. Seraph story. Mr. Seraph finds himself in town around Easter time, and he's having a little problem with another entity that lives in town. The story is called Easter Tales, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Mr. Seraph was working late one night when he heard a strange noise in his office. Mr. Jones had gone home already, planning to meet Juliet for a movie at her house. Mr. Seraph did hope they were being careful. He knew the transitory nature of his business often took him elsewhere, and Mr. Jones would have to go with him when the time came. He didn't want him to be too hard-pressed to head back out again, though it was possible that Mr. Jones might decide to stay and give all this up. He wouldn't be the first assistant that Mr. Seraph had taken on, and sometimes they just decided that this was what they wanted to do. Sometimes they also died badly, but he was hoping to avoid that as well. Hey, Whimsically Creative, thanks for becoming one of our spooky ghosts. Kinda like that, Leia. He had been writing up some reports, doing a little bit of inventory, matching some orders that they had had, when he heard the sound a second time. It was a weird sound, a galumphing sort of sound. It sounded a little like a rabbit, but Mr. Seraph did not want to meet the rabbit that was big enough to make a sound like that. He tried to get back to his figures, but when it came a third time, he put his pen down and finally went out to the main area of the office. "Hello? Who's there?" The noise came again from a shadowy corner near the bathroom, but as Mr. Seraph turned, the shadow was already moving away. He saw the door to the bathroom open and then creak shut slowly, and Mr. Seraph smiled as he took a few steps in that direction. He was a demon from the pits of hell, and there wasn't much that scared him or made him uneasy. If it were an intruder, he would dispense with him in short order, and then go back to his numbers. He was almost to the bathroom when he noticed something sitting on the filing cabinet near Mr. Jones's desk. It was so colorful that he couldn't understand how he had missed it before. It was set in those colors of Technicolor sweetness that you often associated with children. There was papery grass at the bottom of it, and the top of it was festooned with treats, marshmallow chickens, brightly colored chocolate eggs, and a few office supplies, even a large chocolate egg that sat decoratively right in the middle. Attached to the outside was a card that read, "Happy Easter, Lucifer Jones." Mr. Seraph had turned his head only for a moment when something banged in the bathroom, and he turned his attention back to the matter at hand. He came quickly toward it and opened the door with a swift motion. He expected to see someone attempting to climb out the small window over the toilet, a window that would have barely let a child out. To his surprise, all he saw was toilet paper rolling across the floor as though someone had bumped the shelf where they kept it. The window was open, and he could see something moving off around the building as it made its way elsewhere. Mr. Seraph closed the window and went back to the outer office. That was when he caught sight of the basket sitting on his own desk. It was full of candy and some rather handsome-looking pins, and the card read, "Happy Easter to," and the name that followed was written in a language that only Mr. Seraph and his siblings would have been able to read. There was another basket, similarly filled, on his receptionist's desk, and he was perplexed as he looked around the office and tried to make sense of it. Someone had broken into his office, not to steal, but to leave things. This was highly peculiar, but Mr. Seraph had seen strange things in town before. He knew of Easter, of course. Most demons kept up with the religious holidays. These were times when faith had a lot of power, and it was best to keep your head down if you didn't want a quick trip back to hell. It was Easter Eve, and Mr. Seraph had seen children running around with colorful baskets. The city had even organized an egg hunt for them, but he had stayed in today for obvious reasons. Days like today were a good time for a demon to be unnoticed. And he knew his sister was out of town, and his brother never left his prison, so he supposed both of them were likely safe as well. Considering the safety of his siblings had not was not something he often did, and it was something that had been happening more and more these days. Mr. Seraph had begun to notice himself becoming comfortable, and he didn't trust it. It was not in his nature to be comfortable, and usually this meant it was time to move along. The problem was that the town was on something of a lockdown. People were trying to get in who had no business being here, and even though Mr. Seraph and his entourage could have left any time they wanted, he was a little worried about running afoul of these, as of yet, unknown entities. The other problem was he was still being pursued by the Laughing Shadows, and that seemed to be a bigger problem. Religious fanatics were something that he had a little bit of experience with, but these shadow people were something else entirely. They were denizens of neither heaven nor hell, and he suspected they might be what many of his kind considered outsiders. Surely they were like the woman who ran the botanical gardens, and the Green Knight who pursued her. All of them were from outside, and that made them dangerous. Hey, Lou, hadn't seen you in a while. Welcome to the show, buddy. Mr. Seraph returned to his office and locked the door. He could make some inquiries tomorrow. He didn't know what was going on, but he wanted to get to the bottom of all this. Good morning, Sheriff Guthrie. Sheriff Guthrie looked up at the dapper-looking man with the skeletal face. Sheriff Guthrie had not had a lot of run-ins with Mr. Seraph, but they had met and gone on an adventure or two together. Other than times of excessive chaos, the sheriff and his men had very little reason to bother Mr. Seraph. He paid his taxes, he spent money in town, and he seemed to be able to come to its defense when it needed him. And in Sheriff Guthrie's book, that made him all right by him. It was Sunday morning, and Sheriff Guthrie was yawning as he stood by one of the barricades, hearing a report. There had been another attempt on the border last night, and people had tried to come across. His men had shot at a few of them, something that was becoming more and more common these days, but they'd found no bodies, and it seemed that no one had been injured. Whoever these people were, they were devious and quick. Whew. Gotta get some water. Good for you, Lou. It takes a lot of mental fortitude, man. Mr. Seraph, what is it I can help you with today? Hopefully nothing. Someone has broken into my office. It happened last night after midnight, and they got away before I could lay hands on them. Sheriff Guthrie was already heading back to his cruiser as he took out his notepad and began to make notes. Break-in? Was anything taken? No, but something was left behind. The intruder left behind 3 colorful baskets with the recipients' names on them. I don't so much mind them leaving gifts, but the breaking and entering is a bit of a concern. When he had mentioned the baskets, Sheriff Guthrie had already started shaking his head and laughing. Oh, that's nothing to worry about. Oof. Mr. Seraph lifted an eyebrow. Someone broke into my place of work, and that's not some reason for concern? Word order's weird there. Not really. It's just something that happens in town on Easter. On Easter Sunday, going into Monday morning, someone comes into every house in town and leaves a basket for the people that live there. No one's quite sure why, no one is quite sure who does it, but everybody says it's the Easter Bunny, and everybody enjoys finding the baskets the next day. It's a little town tradition, so don't worry too much about it." "I'm a little confused why you aren't more concerned about this." Sheriff Guthrie shrugged. "Mr. Sheriff, I know you haven't been here long, and I guess neither have I in the grand scheme of things, but sometimes it's best to just let these things go. Better for your sanity and better for your health. There are things that go on in this town that you just don't want to know about sometimes, so you just nod your head and forget about them. You know what I mean." Mr. Sheriff thought he knew what the man was talking about, but what it really did for him was make him want to know more. He was used to making deals with strange things, and one more strange thing didn't really seem that big a deal to him. So he figured it might be okay to poke his nose a little deeper. "Little brother, do yourself a favor and just walk away." Mr. Sheriff had kicked his feet up on his desk and smiled as he listened to the sounds of an active tourist town in the background of his phone call with his sister. "Sounds like you're having a mighty good time." He could hear the smile as she answered him, and it was good to hear her having such fun. "Gatlinburg is a wonderful place to visit, but I really wouldn't want to open my business here. The problems on display here make the ones in the town seem minute. They may not have a death cult attempting to take over their town, but I definitely would have to deal with a lot less adultery and gambling addiction in Kashmir. So, what can you tell me about this thing that leaves gifts on Easter evening? I'm not childish enough to believe it's the Easter Bunny, so it has to be something." "It is something, but it's difficult. It doesn't hurt anyone, and it brings joy to local kids. It's just one of the magical things about Kashmir. Just let it alone and go about your business. It's best not to think about it any more than you can help." Someone was speaking to them in the background, and he heard his sister cover the phone as she responded to them. Mr. Sheriff could hear the accented voice of his sister's lover, and she said something as well, and when the hand came away from the phone, he could hear the unspoken joy the two were sharing. They were having fun. Who was he to intrude on that? "I'll let you go. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. I just thought I'd ask what all this was about." "I'm telling you now just to enjoy it. Don't go looking for trouble. There are things in this world that are older than us and stranger than us, and the things of the forest are among them." "I'll be careful." He hung up on her before she could respond, but he had already decided to look a little closer. There wasn't a lot going on in the talent acquisition business this time of year, and having a mystery to sink his teeth into was something that might keep him busy for a little while. "Gramps is resting right now, but maybe I can help you with something." Mr. Sheriff had come to the old man in the woods for answers. In the few meetings he had had with him, he knew that the old-timer was wise, and he had knowledge far beyond what should be available. If anyone would know what was going on in the woods, it would be him. The journey wasn't terribly long, but heading into the woods always gave Mr. Sheriff a little shudder when he remembered his last trip. It wasn't every day that you found a literal portal to hell in the backwoods, but he supposed it was something of an adventure nonetheless. If anyone would know what was going on, it would be the old man. "I just needed to ask him something. It's not terribly important, I suppose, but it's something I've recently discovered, and I would like to get some information on. You see, my shop was broken into last night, and Marcus, the old man's grandson, was already beginning to laugh. "Are you worried about the Easter Bunny, Mr. Sheriff?" "If that's what the thing is called, who keeps leaving presents behind for every person every year, then I suppose I am. Yes. Look, I know you're new, but it's just something that happens here in Kashmir. People either go a little crazy about it, or they just accept it and move on. I would suggest you move on if you like to keep your sanity. Mr. Seraph raised an eyebrow at that. And just what do you mean by that? Let's just say that people who go looking for this thing don't always come back in the best of shape mentally. People go looking for something they aren't prepared for, and it messes with them. Given your... He cleared his throat and tried to find the right words before finally settling on condition, you might be a little better suited than most, but I would highly recommend that you let it go. It's just better for everyone if you don't go looking for it. Just be content in the understanding that it doesn't mean you any harm. It simply likes to give gifts, and that's all that you need to know. Mr. Seraph turned his head back to the car. I'm afraid that's not going to be good enough for me. Marcus called his name, and when he turned around, he could see that the young man was weighing something very heavily. Look, there's a cave in the woods near the prison. It's midway between the prison and the town. At least that's what Grandpa told me once. The creature stays there, and that's where he receives people. I would recommend that you leave it alone, but if you find that you can't, then that's where you must go look for him. Mr. Seraph gave him an appraising look before thanking him and leaving. I'd still recommend that you not go, he called to him as he rolled out of the driveway. Nothing good can come from knowing. Mr. Seraph rolled out of the yard and headed back to town. He had made a career of knowing, and he wasn't about to stop now. He hadn't been... It hadn't been hard to follow the creature's back trail. Whatever it was comfortable enough not to cover its tracks. It was probably used to people not asking a lot of questions and just going with the flow. He supposed he might be the first one to go looking for it. No. He supposed he wasn't the first one to go looking for it. It was his job, after all, but Mr. Seraph could already see where he wanted to be and what he wanted to be doing. Damn it. He supposed he might not be the first one to go looking for it. He supposed he wasn't the first one to go looking for it, and as he pressed off into the woods, he hoped he wouldn't be the last. Mr. Jones had offered to go with him, but he had told him to enjoy his Easter Sunday. Juliet had wanted to go to the botanical gardens for some sort of Easter flower show, and Lucifer had seemed incapable of denying her. He told his boss that he'd go with him if he wanted him to. It was his job, after all. But Mr. Seraph could already see where he wanted to be and what he wanted to be doing. There we go. Go spend your day with your girl, Mr. Jones. I'll be fine on my own. Mr. Jones had watched him go with some trepidation, but he was the boss, and he would do as he was told. Mr. Seraph headed into the woods along the familiar trails that he had... Try that one again. Hi, Serenity. We're glad you could make it. Mr. Jones... I can't talk tonight. Mr. Seraph headed into the woods along the familiar trails that he had gone during Halloween. He had walked. Mr. Seraph headed into the woods along the familiar trails he had walked during Halloween. The woods were much quieter these days. After they had closed the hole, the number of things trying to come out of them had decreased by a wide margin. It didn't really mean a lot to him. The creatures were not a worry of his, but he supposed It was better for the town in the long run. He was aware that a few of them were looking at him as he went, not really understanding why someone like him would be down here in the first place. But he kept moving, and soon he found what he was looking for. It was a big cave in the heart of the forest, the kind of place that kids might go to explore and then never come out of. The footprints led him right to it, but it was the furtive movements from inside the cave that made him hesitate. Someone was in there. Someone had seen him, and they did not seem too pleased about it. Mr. Seraph was too... Mr. Seraph wasn't too terribly worried about it, but in his line of work it always paid to be a little bit wary. He passed from the cool afternoon sun into the depths of the cave, and as he did, he heard something come hopping towards him. It sounded exactly like what had been in his office a few nights ago, and it sounded large. Whatever it was, it did not sound happy to see him, and Mr. Seraph was on his guard. What came out of the shadows was a large anthropomorphic rabbit that hopped along on sizable back legs. It was grotesque looking, and its fur was dirty. He understood why they went about in the shadows. For something that was meant to bring children joy, the thing would have probably scared the crap out of them. "Easter's over, my friend, so why are you here? Didn't you get what you wanted?" That's a different voice. "Easter's over, my friend, so why are you here? Didn't you get what you wanted in your basket?" "Actually, I was just wondering who had delivered it. I'm new in town and something of a curious type. Perhaps you can enlighten me about what it is that you do around here." The rabbit sighed, seemed to flop down on its elongated back legs, and reached into its pocket as it pulled out a box of Swisher Sweet cigars. Mr. Seraph didn't know where it had gotten them from, and he didn't particularly care, but it was odd to watch this giant thing light up a cigar and take a long, satisfied puff. You've lived in this town long enough to know that weird things just happen around here. Very little of it is anything that anyone can control. It all just sort of happens. I'm what you might call a manifestation. Someone has decided that I need to be here, and so I am. I don't ask questions about it, and neither should you. Everyone's happy, and that's what counts. Mr. Seraph leaned against the wall as he thought about it. Yeah. Sorry, guys, I'm struggling a little tonight. Allergies are kicking my ass. Where were we? It wasn't really an answer, but he supposed it was the best answer he was like to get. So who decided that you should be here? Same one that decided what anything should be. And who might that be? And who might that be? Mr. Seraph asked, as he pushed a hand through... as he pushed a hand around to dissipate the smoke. The Creator creates. That's his job. My job is to deliver baskets once a year and then go make myself scarce the rest of the time. It isn't much of a life, but it's life. It's all I've got, and I suppose it's okay. Mr. Seraph shook his head, getting pretty tired of all this brick wall that he was finding whenever he tried to ask questions. Who was this mysterious force that seemed to control everything in town? And why was it so hell-bent on not giving him any answers? I don't know how he does it, but there's a person in town who controls the flow of things. He's been here since the start, and whatever he thinks should happen does happen. He has power, whether he knows it or not, and if you want your answers, then you're going to have to find him." "How would I find him?" Mr. Seraph asked. The rabbit thing laughed a little, and smoke puffed out of his mouth like a dragon. "How should I know? If I knew, I'd probably ask him why he sent me to do nothing more than give kids Easter baskets every year. If you find him, maybe you can ask him for me. Till then, I guess I got a lot of shit to do." "I don't got a lot to do until next Easter." Mr. Seraph left the creature to his contemplation after that. The longer he stayed here, the stranger a place Kashmir seemed. There were mysteries here. There were questions that seemed to lack answers, but Mr. Seraph was often good at finding answers. He'd figure it out. What else did he have to do in the meantime? Oh, all right, guys. That's your Friday story. Trying to do some some holiday stories there for you guys. So you feel like I'm doing the quota there. Got to get some holiday stories mixed in. I think I've got a hair on my lip. Well, Leah, you sleep tight, all right? Serenity, you also sleep well. Whoever's leaving out to sleep, I guess we'll catch you guys next time. All right, we're going to move on to our Thursday story. Tuesday story is going to be an April Fool's story, and the Thursday story is going to be an Easter story. So, see how those go along. Let's see. Check, check, check. Every time I move it, it seems like I get static lately, so. Check, check, check. Cool. Alrighty. So, this one is called Just a Prank, and it's our April Fool's story this year. And I do hope that you guys enjoy it. "Excuse me, sir, could I offer either of you a free haircut? My wife and I had been out for a walk, something we did quite often, when we came across the strange man." Excuse me. Downtown was always so pretty this time of year, and we liked taking in the spring colors in the park and in the planters around the shops. Downtown always felt like it was coming back to life as spring came on in full, and our walks were honestly something we looked forward to. We weren't as young as we used to be, and the winters often saw us spending most of our time inside. Feeling the return of the warm weather is when we truly begin. Nah, that's not the line. Feeling the return of the warm weather is when our year truly begins, and we look forward to it. We walk hand in hand, window shopping, or just enjoying the day, and my day just doesn't feel complete until I stretch my legs a little. We'd seen the barber's chairs set up a few blocks away. They were right in the middle of a heavy traffic area, and the man standing between them was dressed in a white apron, the kind you see on an old-timey barber. He had even set up one of those poles with the red stripe on it, and when we walked up, he was running a razor over a leather strap that seemed to be and seemed to be looking around for customers. He looked normal enough, just a regular fellow taking in the nice day, and we never suspected a thing. I figure it was something he was doing to drum up business, and my wife and I agreed to a free cut. He clapped his hands and told us that we wouldn't be sorry, as he pointed his razor towards the old-timey chairs. The man told us to have a seat, and as he placed the apron around our necks, I felt something slip around my waist towards the back of the chair. Covered as we were, I wasn't sure if I'd gotten myself fouled in a strap or something, but I didn't really think much of it. It was just a barber chair. No one expects to be ambushed while you're sitting in a barber chair. He started out normal enough. He touched up my existing haircut, he touched up my beard, and shaved my neck a little, and by then he had a crowd of onlookers as they watched us receiving our haircuts. Some of them laughed. A few of them said he did good work, and as the man turned back to the crowd, I expected he would make some sort of sales pitch. It appeared, however, that it wouldn't be that simple. Nothing about what my wife or I experienced that day was simple. Hang on a second. Pretty good, but I feel it could be better. With the indulgence of my 2 volunteers, I think we might try something a little bit different. He began to cut my hair again, and I could already tell he was taking too much off. I didn't wear my hair long, but I could feel the breeze around the back of my neck, and I could already tell that he was cutting much too high into my hairline. I asked him what he was doing, but he ignored me. My wife's hair is usually long, but I watched as he had cut her into a more trendy hairstyle, one of those little pixie cuts that all the women seem to be wearing. He held up a mirror after he had finished, and though my hair was a little shorter than I liked, it still looked all right. The crowd had begun to clap, thinking it was some kind of exhibition or something. But the mysterious street barber wasn't through yet. I think it's time to let my volunteers in on a little secret. Their haircut is about to take a turn for the worse. I'm afraid that my volunteers are the victims of an April Fool's joke. The crowd began to laugh, still thinking that we were in on this, and as the man returned to the chair, I laughed and told him that he certainly had gotten me, but that I would like to get up now. I kept chuckling right up until something cold and metallic slipped into my neck. He had stuck me with a hypodermic of some kind, and almost at once my body began to feel funny. My arms and legs felt heavy, my neck had trouble supporting my head, and my mouth seemed unable to form words without a lot of effort. I suppose he did the same to my wife, but my head seemed incapable of rotating at that moment, and all I could do was flop my neck to the side and watch as he slipped in a She slipped into a similar state of relaxation. Let's see. Perhaps we might cut a little shorter. He began to cut again, and when he was done, I was completely bald. He'd even shaved my eyebrows and my beard off, and I looked... It's like... a little too long-winded an explanation. He'd even shaved my eyebrows and my beard off. He had even shaved my eyebrows and my beard off, and I looked more like a Mr. Potato Head than I had when I had gotten there. I was smoother than I had been since I was out of short pants, and the crowd laughed at how ridiculous I looked. That needs a period. I still wasn't really scared, more upset than anything. If the man wanted to play a little April Fool's joke on me, he hadn't needed to drug me. I would have been a good sport about it, despite the fact that I looked terrible bald. I wobbled my neck around to see my wife receiving similar treatment. He'd shaved her down to the skin, and we looked like a pair of eggs as we sat there, chuckling to ourselves in what people must have thought was consent. Lovely, lovely, but I think maybe there's still a little too much going on with my volunteers. Maybe we could take off one of these. He turned so quickly that I missed the motion, and when he took my ear off, I wasn't laughing anymore. It fell to the ground with a wet thump, and people began to yell almost immediately. I didn't know what to say, even though I really couldn't say anything. My head hurt, but whatever he had injected me with made me incapable of moving. I was fully at his mercy, and when he took the other ear off, I felt myself truly give in to fear. He turned to look at the crowd, and I saw more than one of them take a step back. Whatever he looked like at that moment must have been grisly, but it was his laugh that made them flinch away. Gotcha! It appears they aren't the only April Fools today. Some of them began to laugh, but the laughter was nervous and unsure. As for me, I wasn't laughing at all. It appeared that we had wandered into something a little worse than an April Fool's joke. And as he turned to my wife, I tried my best to push the chemical-induced haze away so I could help her. Blood was running down the side of my head. My hearing was altered, and as he lifted the razor, I heard her make a weak little noise in her throat. You have such a lovely face, my dear, but it's a little lumpy with all... Bleh. But it's a little lumpy with all of this on it. He stood in front of her so the audience couldn't see, but when he moved, I heard several of them scream. He had cut her nose off, taking it off slowly and deliberately, and as the crowd seemed to split on whether or not it was real or some kind of prank, several of them began calling for help. I wished someone would answer them. The blood loss was making me dizzy, and I couldn't imagine what my poor wife must be going through. I sighed in relief as a police officer walked up with his hand on his gun. It was an officer I was aware of, someone who waved at us, and we waved back as he patrolled the downtown, and he was shaking a little as he took in the scene. He didn't seem to know what to make of this man and his odd show, but as he held up my wife's nose and the blood began to run down her face, he drew his gun and pointed it at the crazed barber. Step away from those two. I don't know what the hell is going on, but you either drop that razor or I'm going to put 2 hot slugs in you right now. I expected the man to back down. I expected him to look scared or maybe even try to reason with the officer. But instead, he just threw his head back in a laugh as he dropped the razor and my wife's nose. My poor, deluded Officer MacArthur. This is only a prank. It's an April Fool's joke, and it appears I've made a fool out of you as well. The officer looked around as if he wasn't quite sure what was going on anymore. The crowd still looked horrified, but they seemed pretty unsure as well. These two in the chairs are just actors. I've put prosthetics on them for effect, but I'm doing no more than shaving off clay. What about the blood? Officer MacArthur said, as his gun shook a little in his hand. Nothing but stage blood. It's all nothing but an April Fool's joke. Stand up and take a bow. You two are quite a pair. The crowd looked at us as if they expected us to stand up and take our masks off. But when we continued to sit in our chairs and bleed, he turned back to my wife and shook his head. They are so very dedicated to their craft. Nothing will stop them in their little play. Why, I bet I could slit their throats and they'd go right on. In one Swift motion. He bent and picked up the razor. Officer MacArthur put his gun down slightly, but it came back up as the man picked up the metal. The instrument, not the metal. Picked up the instrument. He turned to my wife, pressed a kiss right on her forehead, and then he ran the razor over her throat as the blood washed over her apron. The crowd wasn't quite sure what to make of it, as her feet kicked and her body convulsed. But the man with the razor only took a bow and then folded it up and ran towards a shop behind the two chairs. He pushed through the doors and was gone before anyone could figure out what exactly had happened. While they tried to make sense of it, I had a front row seat for my wife as she bled to death. I had a front row seat as my wife bled to death. She kicked feebly, her scared eyes looking straight at me, but everyone still believed it was just a bit. They believed we were in on it, and as I felt some of my control return to my arms and legs, I began to yell at them to help me. The words came out slurred and only half formed, but by then it was too late. She had stopped moving 5 minutes ago, and the screaming started again when people realized what had happened. To this day, I still don't know who that man was or why he did such a thing. They couldn't reattach my ears, but I suppose I got off light when you compare my injuries to hers. It appears that the real April Fool ran that day, never to be seen again. Alrighty, there you go. Kind of a short one, but pretty grisly there. Oof. Alright, we're going to move on to the last story. This one's a bit of a long one. Oh, but I think it'll be good to take us out on. This one is talking about a very strange Easter ritual in their town called Resurrection Day, and I hope you guys enjoy it as we head out. The town of Rurin, in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, has a ritual that's very well loved by the population. Rurin is a pretty big place, though you may have never heard of it. It has a working steel mill, a slaughterhouse that sells its meat everywhere in the South, and a very lucrative pulpwood operation that provides paper trees for a lot of different mills. It's a great place to live. It does so without the need for corporate inclusion. You won't find any Walmarts or Dollar Generals in Rurin. It's a town where the mom and pop shop holds sway, and the town council is just as beholden to the people as they are to the businesses. The town council is another oddity that you'll only find in Rurin. The same 7 families have sat on the council since the 1800s, and not just out of a sense of nepotism. Excuse me. There are elections. People do run against them, but even those people vote for the same town council. James Miller, the owner of the Pulpwood Grove, Coral Masterly, the owner of the steel factory, Jim Doherty, the owner of the steel foundry, Todd and Melanie McCormick, who run the slaughterhouse, and Evelyn Ramsey, who's the owner of a large chunk of land that a lot of other things are on. They're the current city council, but their families have always run the town for as long as anyone can remember. It's not a bad system. They don't swindle the town treasury. They don't make deals that would put money in their pockets while hurting the town. And they don't take bribes, at least not as far as anyone knows. What they do is keep the town the way it is. They keep all the modern conveniences, such as CVS and McDonald's, out of the town. The town just got broadband internet 5 years ago, and that was only because they cut a deal with a local provider. Even the phones in town are run by a local branch, and most people still prefer home phones rather than cell phones. In a lot of ways, Rurin is a town out of time, and lots of people come to see it and spend their money there. Which... What brings in a lot of them around Easter season is Resurrection Day, a town ritual that has existed for as long as anyone can remember. One resurrection... I can't talk today. On Resurrection Eve, one of the councilmen or councilwomen is selected to be the resurrectee. They're taken to Proctor Cemetery and sealed inside the resurrection grave for 3 days. They bring no food or water with them, and most of them go into the casket, smiling and laughing as they wave at the crowd. The casket is sealed, the earth is replaced, and everyone leaves so that whatever magic is supposed to happen can happen. In 3 days' time, the council person in question is dug up, the casket is opened, and they stumble out and proclaim another year of prosperity for Rurin. If they look a little younger, their wrinkles replaced with baby fine skin, then no one notices. They clap and they cheer, and things go on in the town as they always have. It's good for the town. It's good for everyone. But someone had begun to notice that someone wanted answers. Come on, Mr. Salazar. I just want to do a piece on the town ritual. There's nothing wrong with having a little town spirit, is there? Mr. Salazar, the editor-in-chief at the Rurin Journal, stared at Selina through the rising smoke off his cigar. He liked Selina. She was a good writer, and she was hungry for news in a way that you didn't often see with young people. The fact that she was easy on the eyes had very little to do with it, but an old lech like Salazar could still appreciate it. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of town spirit, honey, but what I have a problem with is you poking your nose where it doesn't belong. I got Jamie working on the Resurrection Day piece, and I believe I have you working on a piece about the Easter parade. Selina rolled her eyes and flopped into the chair in front of his desk. Salazar liked the way she flopped, but the look on her face told him that there was going to be trouble. Come on, Andy. You and I both know that kids couldn't find new... Blech. Try that one again. Come on, Andy. You and I both know that kid couldn't find news in a classified section. People are tired of just taking your word for the fact that Resurrection Day says is just normal. It's 2026. People have internet now. The young people can look it up and see that what's going on here isn't normal. They want answers. They want to know what's really going on. And I want to bring them that. Damn it. And I want to bring them that. Mr. Salazar raised his eyebrow as he glared at Selina. I'm only going to tell you this one more time, kid. You keep your nose out of this, and maybe you live long enough to be editor-in-chief one of these days. I don't want to hear another word about it. You cover the Easter parade like you're supposed to. You keep drawing your paycheck, and you keep putting out the news. Don't make me regret hiring you. Selina threw up her hands and stormed out of his office. She and Anthony Salazar had come to blows like this before. When she wanted to do an expose on the pulpwood field and its miraculous regrowth every year, he had told her to leave it alone. When she wanted to look into the slaughterhouse and figure out how a town with only 2 cattle ranches supplied enough beef for a multi-state operation, he had told her to let it go. when she had wanted to look into the steel foundry and figure out how it was the only working one in this part of the country, he had encouraged her to go talk to the owner and do a piece on that, but not to dig too deeply. Selina had been doing what she was told. She had been eating shit and smiling, but now this was something she wanted answers to. She wanted answers to a lot of things, and this might be the first step in getting them. Go cover the Easter parade like a good little girl, she groused as she flopped down in her desk and began typing. Oh, she'd cover the Easter parade. Then she'd figure out what was really going on with this town. Excuse me. Ooh, there we go. The first thing to do was to talk to Mary Worth. Mary Worth had once been a member of the council as well, or her great-grandmother had. The Worths had once owned several large cattle runs, controlling 80% of the beef that was used by the slaughterhouse. They had sat on the council, they'd been well respected, but then something had happened during the ritual one year, and everything had gone to pot pretty quickly. Their cattle had been dying. Again. Begun dying. Their cattle had begun dying. Their land had been sold to pay off debt, and the family had fallen into relative obscurity. The family now owned only a single farm on the outskirts of town, and Mary was the last remaining member of that line. Mary was considered to be something of a town crazy. She was always telling weird stories and making outlandish claims, but Selina thought she might be just what she was looking for. The woman was sitting on the front porch, as she almost always was. She lived alone, and being outside seemed to soothe her somewhat. She was sitting out there with only the creak of the rocking chair to keep her company, and as Selina pulled up, she saw her reach for the rifle that was leaned against the house. People like to come out here and mess with Miss Worth, and Selina wouldn't blame her for being a little bit paranoid. Whoa, 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 I don't want any trouble. I work for the paper. I'm doing a story on Resurrection Day. Have you got a minute to talk to me? The old woman seemed to contemplate it for a moment, before putting the gun back against the house, and turning back to stare at Selina with her rheumy old eyes. Why, I suppose I might. Nothing but time to spare these days. Social Security pays for my groceries and my taxes, but not much else. Certainly doesn't pay for company, so I guess I got a little bit of time. Selina sat down and contemplated what exactly to ask the woman. She hadn't expected to get this far, and it was a wonder that she hadn't been shot, or at least shot at. She took out her recorder and made notes before beginning. Your family used to be on the council, isn't that right? For close on 50 years, we sure were. We provided the meat for the slaughterhouse, and for a while, people respected us. Respect is pretty easy to get, but it's not easy to keep. People only really respect you until you don't have anything, and ours was thanks to Resurrection Day. You've told people that before. What exactly happened on Resurrection Day, all those years ago? Oh, that was back when my great-grandmother was on the city council. She'd been serving with them since 1901. She'd probably be serving with them still if her number hadn't come up. You know how it goes. Every year they draw somebody's name, and that person has to go into the ground for 3 days. It was her turn, and it was the first time she had gone in a while. She was nervous. She didn't understand. Try that again. We didn't understand what she was nervous about. It was just a harmless town ritual, but she assured us that it was just nerves. She let 'em put her in the casket, and she went into the ground for 3 days, and when they pulled her out, something was very wrong. My great-grandmother had been skinned alive down there. Every bit of her had been skinned to the bone, and she had the most god-awful look of horror on her face that I had ever seen. She was screaming when it happened. You could tell because her mouth was open and everything. I don't think my parents had intended for us to see her, but when they popped that casket open, we all got a look. I've never heard of anyone dying during the ritual. Has it happened before? Twice more. It only happened 3 times in the entirety of the town's history. And every time it does, it always tips the power structure of the town. Why, the first time it was Jensen Mallory, who'd been a banker. Time after that, it was Cletus Summerland, who had once owned the land that my great-grandmother's farm had been on before she turned it into a cattle ranch. The families were never the same afterward. Most of them were dead within 2 generations, completely wiped out forever. I suspect it'll be the same with my family as well. I'm okay with that. Seems a shame for it to end like that, but that is the way of the town. What do you mean? Selena asked, making notes as she tried to get it all down. They call this town Rurin, but that's not quite right. It's not named after anything you could really put your finger on. It's named after a creature. A creature? What sort of creature? Back before he died in 1995, I had a cousin who snuck out to the cemetery during the resurrection night. He told me he saw something there that would haunt him until the day he died. It was something looming over the grave with the councilman in it. But before he could see much more, it turned and looked at him, and he said he ran like the devil himself was after him. It sounds to me like you might want to go have yourself a look at the graveyard during the ritual. Maybe there's something there that'll clue you in to what's going on around here. Selena thanked Mary and headed back into town. She wanted to be ready for tonight. It seemed like there was more to see in the graveyard than old relatives, and she meant to have a good seat for when it started. Ugh, goodness. Whew, these accents are killing me. Selena, I really wish you would just let this go. Jasper, her roommate, was watching her pack a small bag as she prepared to go out for what he often called guerrilla journalism. It's perfect, Jasper. All I have to do is sit in the Worcester Mausoleum and find out what's going on during the resurrection ritual. It's easy. No one's going to see me. No one's going to be there. It should be the easiest thing in the world, and it won't cost me anything. All I have to do is leave in the morning, and no one will ever be the wiser. Yeah, and what if you run into something that's a little more than nothing? What if the town elders are, I don't know, they're doing something awful out there, and they find you peeking and decide that you've got to go? I like having you as a roommate. You pay your rent on time, and you don't make a lot of mess. You can't always get that from people in this town. Realized I used that one already. Selena rolled her eyes at him as she threw her bag over her shoulder. If you want to keep... Try that again. If you want me to keep paying my rent on time, then I have to go out there and do things like this. Even if the Journal doesn't want it, I can sell it to somebody higher up the food chain and make a mint. Stories about rich people up to dastardly things are real big right now. I'm not saying that this could be the next Epstein files, but it very likely could be. You watch the news, you know stories like this are big. Jasper sighed as he put a hand on her shoulder. Just be careful. I meant it. I really don't want to have to find another roommate. She headed out then, feeling that she had a pretty good grasp on what was going on, but honestly, having no real idea what to expect. Getting into the cemetery had been easy. No one was really watching a boneyard, and it had been an easy matter to jump the fence and get into the... Blech. Gotta stop narrating all these audiobook pages before I try to do these things. It had been easy to jump the fence and get into the cemetery. She hadn't expected a lot of trouble on that end, and she didn't encounter any issues until she got to the mausoleum. The Worcester Mausoleum was a city landmark, had been since she was a kid. The Worcesters had been one of the founding families, and they spared no expense on their final resting place. The mausoleum was covered in pictures and symbols, things from folklore and the like. Things from folklore and the like. Not the lake. It was artistically significant, and most people knew it by sight. She'd been in there before, researching one story or another, but today she found that the door was locked. It wasn't something that happened very often. The mausoleum was usually open to visitors, but she supposed maybe they had decided to get in ahead of the vandals that sometimes they had to deal with around this time of year. Luckily, she had brought a little crowbar with her, and a quick snap and a pop and she was inside. The mausoleum was grand, but it certainly didn't have the benefit of air conditioning. It was cool and damp, and as the sun set outside, she found a perfect vantage point near the back corner. They had built little vents into the mausoleum, probably hoping to let some light in when people came to visit, and from the grate that she had a perfect view. Allergies are killing me. And from the grate she had a perfect view of the resurrection mound. She hoped Councilman Doherty was comfortable enough in there, but she also hoped that maybe he had sand and worms in his pants as well. Councilman Doherty was the one that had told her to stop being a child at last year's budget meeting, when she had asked him why only a third of the budget seemed to go into the town. He had always been critical of the media, and she hoped his discomfort would make him think about the town at the start of the fiscal year. Hey, Vox, we're glad to see you. She waited for what felt like hours, and as her watch ticked closer to midnight, she started to wonder if maybe Mary Worth had really just been a crazy old lady. She was out here in the cemetery on the word of a woman who had been known to walk up the street naked, and who had been arrested 3 times for making threats against the council and the police force. She felt foolish now, her determination feeling more like misplaced indignation. It was going to be a bad day tomorrow if she had to stand out in the heat and watch the parade. But she would do it, because that was what you did when you were a journalist. She had started to nod off a little. Something you would have said would have been impossible in a place like that. And that's when she heard the footsteps of something large and angry sounding. It was huge, a creature that blocked out the moon as it covered the windows of the entire mausoleum. It was gray, its ears long as they pointed into the trees, and it approached the grave with loud, galumping steps. It was huge, long arms that ended. It had huge. It was huge. I think we're going to cut that one out. That works. It had long arms that ended in claws, and it easily tore up the earth as it lifted the casket out in a matter of seconds. Selena could hear something moving in there, not out of any kind of discomfort, but maybe out of anticipation. And as it pulled the lid off, she saw Councilman Doherty peeking out at the creature. It said something to him, its voice watery and a little garbled, and when the councilman answered in kind, Selena supposed that that was what it spoke. She didn't think that was a sound that a human throat should be able to make, but the creature must have understood him, because he gripped him under the arms and pulled. The councilman's skin came off like wrapping paper, or like one of those oranges that some people can peel in a single pull. Oh, thank you, Vox. It helps that I wrote it, though. There we go. He skinned him in 2 hard pulls of the armpit, and she heard Councilman Doherty cry out to the moon like a shot deer. The creature stuffed the skin into his mouth as the councilman lay twitching in the coffin that he had been sealed in, and as it ate, its face looked euphoric for the experience. It enjoyed its treat, and as it finished and turned back to the councilman, Selena had a horrifying revelation. Councilman Doherty was looking at the mausoleum, and his lidless eyes looked wide with surprise. He could see her. She knew he could, but it seemed the creature wasn't quite done with him yet. The creature, the Rurin, Selena supposed, began packing the coffin with the rich clay that lay beneath the surface of a... Gotta get some Claritin or something. Okay. With the rich clay that lay beneath the surface all over town, he sealed Councilman Doherty into the casket with it, each handful entombing him inside the casket. His eyes were the last, and they stared at Selena the whole time as he was buried alive. There we go. Then, the creature put the top on the casket and buried him in the earth before leaping over the wall of the cemetery and running off for God knew where. Selena waited an hour, maybe 2, and then she ran out of the mausoleum as quickly as she could. She didn't know what to do with what she had just seen, but she knew that she couldn't publish it in this town. The people who knew would bury her right beside the councilman, and the people who didn't would never believe her. The Rurin was as much a part of the town as the councilors were, and it would probably... Sorry. Sorry. All right. The Ruhr Inn was as much a part of the town council as the councilors were, and it would probably be more than happy to bury her right along with anyone else who spoke up. Hey, boss, I got that parade article written up. I went ahead and emailed it to you, but it said your email was deactivated, so Selina came into his office, but noticed he was in the midst of packing things away. He hadn't had a lot in there. 2 file boxes had taken care of it, and when he looked up at her, she saw that there was an odd mixture of respect and hatred on his face. Mr. Salazar didn't often look afraid, and there was definitely a little fear in there as well, as he sat the box down and gave her a searching look. Guess you'll be emailing those to yourself from now on. I got a job offer to be the editor-in-chief in a town about 50 miles from here. It's a good job, big jump in pay, but I guess I'll be leaving the paper in good hands. What are you talking about? Selina asked as she stepped in and closed the door. The council wants you to be the editor-in-chief of the Ruhr Journal. It's quite an honor for someone your age, and I can assure you that some of the staff is probably going to have a problem with it. I'm not worried. I think you'll do all right. Selina let that sink in, not quite sure how to take it. Was this some kind of bribe for what she had seen? How would the council even know? She hadn't told anyone. She hadn't even written any of it down. She had come in late enough that Jasper had been asleep. When he had woke up, he had asked her what happened, and she had told him that she hadn't seen anything. She didn't like lying to people, but she couldn't tell him the truth. No one would believe her. Mr. Salazar put a hand on her shoulder, and when she looked into his face, this time what she saw was pity. I told you to leave it alone. I told you to just cover the parade and leave all the rest of it behind. But you had to pursue it. Now you've made a choice. Are you going to accept the counselor's decision, or are you going to continue to rock the boat? This is a cage, Selina, but it's your cage, and I suppose you can decorate it however you want. He grabbed his box and left then, leaving Selina in her new office to figure out what would come next. The town car pulled up a few days later as Selina was leaving for home. The voice from inside told her to get in, and Selina obeyed even though it was the last thing she wanted to do. Inside was Councilman Doherty, and he looked far better than he had in years. Doherty could have passed for a man in his 30s now, not the man she had stared at the social Bleh. Not the man who had been staring Social Security age in the face. He smiled at her, and his teeth looked like real teeth rather than the false ones she knew he wore. They rode in silence for a moment, and when he spoke, she could see her apartment building rising up down the street. The council would like to thank you for taking on the role of editor-in-chief of the newspaper. We trust that you'll keep what you saw to yourself. The town runs much better when things run smoothly. We've been running the town for a long time. We know what's best for it. And we are what's best for it. So enjoy your new position, but don't forget how you came to have it. We may reach out from time to time to get you to run certain articles for us. I trust that won't be a problem. What happens if it is? You gonna send your monster after me? Doherty laughed. The Ruhr? We could. Who do you think disposed of all those cattle that the Worthy family used to own? Who do you think burned down the bank after Mallory was found unworthy? Sometimes things have to change, and the Ruhr is there to make sure that the transition goes as smoothly as possible. This looks like your stop. I trust that we have an understanding, don't we? Selena felt dirty as she watched the car roll away. She'd been bought and paid for, and worse still, there was no one to tell about what she had seen. No one outside the town would really care, and the people inside the town that did care would bury her if she so much as mentioned it. If they did, maybe the Rurin would dig her up, and she could see what the resurrection ceremony was like, firsthand. And that's it. That's all we got tonight, guys. Whew. I didn't think my voice was going to hold out. Oh, thank you all for joining us for tonight's live stream. I know it ran a little long, but I know you guys like some long stories, so I figured you guys wouldn't mind. Anyway, I hope we'll see you guys next time, next Wednesday, where we'll have some new stories and some cool stuff. So, till then, this is Dr. Plague, wishing you guys a wonderful evening while my voice still holds out. You guys be good, and we'll catch you next time.